It all started with a snort, a shuffle, and a patch of dirt that my pig Daisy just couldn't leave alone. Daisy wasn't your average backyard pet. She was a 200-pound pot-bellied pig with a personality larger than life and a nose sharper than any shovel. I'd had her since she was a piglet, and she'd always been curious, nosy, and frankly, a little mischievous. But she was my companion on this 5-acre property just on the edge of an uptight HOA-controlled community. Important detail, I wasn't part of the HOA. My land was separate, zoned agricultural, and completely outside their authority, not that it ever stopped them from trying to control everything within sniffing distance. The biggest thorn in my side was Karen, the HOA president. The woman had binoculars hanging around her neck like jewelry and made it her mission to document every move I made, from my grass height to where my truck was parked. So when Daisy started digging one afternoon near the fence line between my property and the HOA development, I had a gut feeling it would only be a matter of time before someone tried to make a fuss. The spot she picked wasn't random. She'd wander around the yard, then march with purpose to that one patch. Every day, like clockwork, she'd root around in the same area, grunting and tossing dirt with her snout, tail wagging like she was onto something big. I figured maybe she smelled some old animal remains, or just liked the feel of the dirt there. I didn't think twice. But Karen, of course, did. I noticed her standing across the fence on her side of the property line one morning, arms crossed, lips tight, like she was watching a crime in progress. I waved, friendly as could be. She didn't wave back. She just pulled out her phone and started filming. I rolled my eyes. Really? I muttered to myself. It's a pig digging in the dirt. You'd think I had a meth lab back here. That evening, I got a voicemail from the local sheriff's office. Apparently, they'd received a complaint about an illegal livestock animal damaging shared land. I nearly laughed out loud. Shared land? That fence line was well within my property. I had survey documents, aerial maps, everything. Still, I figured it'd blow over. Maybe the officer would do a drive-by and realize how ridiculous the complaint was. I was wrong. 2 days later, I was in my garage fixing a busted hinge when I heard the sound of sirens. Not just one, 3 sets. I stepped outside and, sure enough, 3 squad cars rolled up to my driveway like they were about to raid a drug den. Behind them, like a shadow in a sun hat, was Karen, phone in hand, lips pursed like she'd won the neighborhood lottery. The officers got out and approached calmly, though I could tell they were already regretting being there. Afternoon, one of them said, eyeing Daisy, who was happily snorting away near her favorite dirt patch. We got a call about a pig causing property damage and violating zoning codes. I raised an eyebrow. That pig is named Daisy. She lives here legally. And she's on my land. Want to see the zoning paperwork? The officer nodded, so I led him to my porch and grabbed the folder I kept just for HOA nonsense. Meanwhile, Karen was behind the cops, ranting loud enough for everyone to hear. This is unacceptable. That pig is an environmental hazard. She's tearing up shared ground. She could hit a gas line or water pipe. That's impossible, I replied over my shoulder. There are no lines in that area, and that's 20 feet within my property line. You know it, Karen. The officer reviewed my papers, nodded slowly, then walked over to Daisy. He crouched, watching her work like a little bulldozer. She sure is determined, he chuckled. What's she looking for? Beats me, I said. But she's been at it for days. Same exact spot. Karen cut in again, voice screeching now. You can't allow this. It violates our HOA guidelines. The cop finally turned to her. Ma'am, this property is not under your HOA's jurisdiction. He's allowed to have livestock. And unless he's breaking an actual law, there's nothing we can do. That should have been the end of it. I expected Karen to huff and puff and stomp away like she usually did when she lost. But instead, she stayed. Her eyes were glued to the dirt. So were the cops. Because at that moment, Daisy let out a triumphant grunt and tossed a final spray of dirt into the air. Then something caught the sunlight. A dull, metallic gleam. Everyone went silent. The digging stopped. Daisy stepped back, snout muddy, tail wagging. I stepped closer and saw what she had uncovered, the edge of something metal. Rectangular. Rusted. It looked like a box. A very old box. One officer crouched down and brushed more dirt away. Looks like it's been here a long time, he murmured. Any idea what this is? I shook my head. First time I'm seeing it. Karen suddenly looked nervous. She took a step forward, eyes wide. Is it valuable? The officer turned to me. Mind if we take a closer look? I nodded, heart starting to race. I had no idea what Daisy had found, but I knew one thing for sure, my pig wasn't just digging for fun anymore. Something buried deep beneath that dirt had just changed the game, and Karen's smug expression was about to disappear faster than you could say, oink. The moment that box came into view, everything shifted. What started as a ridiculous HOA complaint about my pig digging suddenly turned into something far more serious. Daisy had uncovered what looked like an old, rusted lockbox buried deep in the ground. It wasn't a new toolbox or something accidentally dropped, this thing had clearly been down there for decades, maybe longer. The metal was worn, edges corroded, and the latch had fused shut from years of pressure and soil. Even the officers who were ready to leave were now fully focused. One of them knelt beside the box and began brushing off more dirt with his gloves, carefully revealing more of its surface. Karen, who just moments ago was shrieking about HOA violations, now stood awkwardly close, trying to peer over the officer's shoulder like she'd been part of the discovery. Is that historical? She asked, her tone shifting from angry to oddly curious. I could see the wheels turning in her head already. Don't get too excited, I said. Daisy found it on my land. The officer chuckled under his breath but kept his focus on the object. You said your property ends right past that fence line? That's right. I've got survey documents that show the line clearly. That box is at least 15 feet inside my boundary. He nodded. Still, we'll need to open it carefully. Could be anything. Could even be nothing. Or gold, Karen muttered, unable to hide her excitement. This area has history. The old trading route used to pass right through here. I ignored her. I wasn't interested in her sudden change of attitude. Just 20 minutes ago, she was trying to get my pig arrested, now she was acting like a co-explorer on a treasure hunt. Typical Karen. One of the officers went back to the cruiser and returned with a pry bar. You mind if we try to open it here? He asked. If it's something dangerous, we want to know right away. I nodded. Go for it. Daisy, for her part, was lying nearby in the shade now, completely uninterested in all the fuss. She'd done her part. Now it was our turn. The officer wedged the pry bar into the side of the latch, grunted, and pushed. It took a few tries, but finally, with a loud metallic pop, the latch gave way and the lid creaked open. Everyone leaned in. Inside were several tightly packed velvet pouches. The kind you'd see in old Western movies, tied with string and stained with age. The officer opened the first one, and out tumbled a collection of gold coins, round, heavy, and unmistakably old. I could feel my jaw drop. The second pouch had silver coins, some with faces I didn't recognize and dates that looked like they were from the 1800s. The third pouch. Spanish-looking coins. With symbols I couldn't even read. The officer whistled. This is a serious find. These look authentic. We're talking Civil War era at least. Karen gasped. Oh my God. This could be worth hundreds of thousands. Maybe more. And it was found right next to our community. That might qualify it as historical HOA property. Stop right there, I said sharply. Don't even think about it. This was found on my land. You've been calling it my land every day for the last 5 years every time you tried to fine me for not trimming my hedges. You don't get to change the rules now. She opened her mouth to protest, but the officers cut her off. Ma'am, the property line is clear. This was a private discovery. No laws broken. No HOA jurisdiction. We'll file a report for the county, but unless someone else can claim ownership, this find legally belongs to the landowner. Karen looked like she'd just swallowed a lemon. She stammered something about community rights and fair sharing, but her voice was barely a whisper now. One officer took pictures of the box and its contents, then bagged and tagged it all as part of standard procedure. We'll have this authenticated, he said. You'll likely need to go through some paperwork, but it's pretty straightforward if no one else steps up with proof of ownership. And from the looks of it, this box has been buried a long, long time. I thanked them for their professionalism, and they left with the evidence, but not before giving Daisy a little salute. You've got one heck of a pig, the younger cop said, laughing. She might have just found you a fortune. After they drove off, I turned to find Karen still standing there, her eyes glazed over, probably calculating how many clubhouses that treasure could build for her precious HOA. I didn't say a word to her. I just looked down at Daisy and gave her a scratch behind the ears. Nice job, girl. Word got out fast. By the next day, a local news van showed up. Reporters wanted interviews, neighbors wanted details, and suddenly, Daisy was a minor celebrity. I kept things quiet, told them the authorities were handling it and that I was just proud of my pig. But the story kept growing. One of the local historians came by to review the dig site. According to him, the box might have belonged to a wealthy landowner in the late 1800s who disappeared during a banking scandal. Rumors had always said he hid his wealth and skipped town, but no one had ever found anything. Until now. Karen, meanwhile, went on a mini-campaign trying to convince people the HOA deserved a cut. She even suggested that Daisy's discovery had caused emotional distress in the community and disrupted neighborhood peace. But the county didn't buy it. She was warned once for filing frivolous claims. When she tried again, the HOA board, tired of her antics, gave her a formal warning to stop dragging the community into personal disputes. That part was the real treasure. As for me, I wasn't counting coins yet. But I knew one thing for sure, whatever came next, this land, the same land Karen had spent years criticizing, had just proven its worth in gold. And my pig? She wasn't just a farm animal anymore. She was a legend. Karen disappeared from the fence line after that day, but her presence lingered like a bad smell. Word of the discovery spread faster than wildfire. Within 48 hours, I had more attention on my property than I'd had in a decade. Neighbors who had never once waved to me were suddenly friendlier, nosier, and incredibly interested in the spot where Daisy had dug up the rusted box. A few folks even brought their own metal detectors, wandering too close to the property line, just to check if there were more treasures. I had to put up temporary signs that read, "Private property, no trespassing, not a public dig site." But it didn't stop the whispers. Some people were convinced I had hidden more than just coins. Others said Daisy was some kind of gifted animal, born with a sixth sense. One YouTuber even reached out asking if he could interview the pig. No joke. Through it all, Daisy remained calm, content, and completely unaffected. She didn't care about the value of gold or the gossip it stirred. She just liked digging and laying in the mud. Maybe we could all learn a thing or two from her. As for the actual discovery, the sheriff's department had sent the coins and the box to a state historian for evaluation. A couple weeks later, I was contacted by a quiet man in a suit who introduced himself as a state-appointed historical asset manager. He told me, in a calm and professional tone, that the coins were indeed real. Gold sovereigns, Civil War coins, old silver dollars, and even some Spanish doubloons dating back to the 1700s, all authentic. According to him, the stash had likely been buried in the late 1800s by a man named Elias Warner, a wealthy merchant who vanished after accusations of financial fraud. The story was that Warner had hidden his valuables before trying to escape town, possibly planning to retrieve them later. Only he never made it. His disappearance was always a mystery. Until now. When I asked if there were any legal claims against the find, the man shook his head. Elias Warner had no known living relatives, and since this was found on private land, and you cooperated fully with local law enforcement, it legally belongs to you. He then handed me an appraisal estimate. I stared at the paper for a good 30 seconds before I realized I hadn't blinked. The total value? Just under $217,000. My legs actually went weak. I sat down on the steps of my porch, trying to absorb what I'd just been told. Over 200 grand, uncovered by a pig who just liked one spot of dirt more than the others. I didn't plan to sell all of it. I wanted to keep a few pieces for sentimental and historical value. But a large part of the treasure was now going into investments and upgrades. I wasn't interested in moving or showing off, I loved my quiet life. But the fence? Upgraded. Daisy's pen? Doubled in size with a shaded mud pool and heated barn for winter. The rest? I started fixing things around the house, helping my brother pay off his medical bills, and donated part of the value to a local animal rescue that specialized in rehoming pigs. Funny how people had laughed at me for adopting a pig back when I brought Daisy home. Now she'd done more for me than any dog, job, or neighbor ever had. And speaking of neighbors, Karen wasn't taking her defeat well. After the news story aired and the sheriff confirmed everything was legal, she tried a new angle. She claimed that I was disturbing community harmony by attracting unwanted attention to the neighborhood. Then she claimed Daisy was an emotional trigger and demanded I remove her for the sake of the children. I didn't even need to respond. The HOA board finally stepped in. Turns out, a few of the board members had actually enjoyed watching Karen fall flat on her face. And now, thanks to her filing false reports and trying to steal credit for a treasure found on non-HOA land, they'd had enough. A formal letter was delivered to her: cease all actions regarding my property or face removal from her position. She threw a tantrum, called an emergency meeting, and tried to rally the other members. Only 2 showed up. One of them voted against her. And just like that, the self-appointed queen of the HOA was dethroned. I'd be lying if I said I didn't celebrate a little that night. I cracked open a bottle of cider, gave Daisy a full back scratch, and let her snack on fresh strawberries from the garden. She had earned it. I still get the occasional reporter knocking on my door. I even had one company offer me money to use Daisy's image for a line of children's books called Daisy the Treasure Pig. Haven't said yes, but the thought of her on a book cover does make me smile. Every so often, I still catch Karen glaring from a distance. But she doesn't say anything anymore. No more HOA complaints. No more threats. Just silent, bitter looks from the other side of a line she can no longer cross. And right near that line, in the same spot where Daisy made her legendary dig, I put up a little wooden sign. Hand-painted, nothing fancy. It says, X marks the oink. Fall turned to winter, and with the seasons came a slower rhythm that I hadn't enjoyed in years. For the first time since I moved onto this land, I wasn't constantly fighting off HOA complaints or Karen's wild accusations. There were no more letters in my mailbox threatening legal action. No phone calls about grass height or property standards. All that noise faded the day Daisy dug up that treasure. It's funny how a pig and a pile of old coins could shut down years of harassment faster than any lawyer ever could. But the impact wasn't just local. A documentary team from a small streaming platform reached out. They were producing a series about unexpected historical finds across America. My story, or more accurately Daisy's story, had reached their desk. They asked to film a short episode on the property. I was hesitant at first. I never liked cameras or attention, but they promised to keep it low-key and respectful. When they arrived a week later, they kept their word. They interviewed me by the porch, took some drone shots of the land, and, of course, spent a good hour filming Daisy waddling around her yard like a queen. The director even joked, "She walks like she knows she's famous." Maybe she did. They titled the episode "The Pig Who Dug Up the Past," and it quickly became one of the most watched in their series. Viewers from all over the country started messaging me, people with pigs, people from small towns, folks tired of HOA nonsense, telling me how much they loved the story. I even got a few emails from people who